Hello, and welcome to the Alpine Valley School podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gallivan. This is episode 33 of the Alpine Valley School podcast. You can find show notes for this episode at alpinevalleyschool.com/podcast/EP33 for episode 33. 10 episodes ago, we did a panel interview with a group of moms talking about their experience with self-directed democratic education for their children. Today's episode is a follow-up where we interview a group of dads about their experience. Let me introduce the dads you'll be hearing from today.
Hi, my name is Aaron Cure. I had two girls that both graduated a year apart from each other from Alpine Valley School.
My name is Brian Nelson. I've got one boy, and he currently is in Alpine Valley. He's been there approximately 3 years.
I'm Randall Alford, and all three of my children attended Alpine Valley School, and all three received their diplomas. They're all three fully grown and successful adults right now.
I asked Aaron, Brian, and Randall to talk about how they came to the school, and then to share some of the struggles that they experienced after their students enrolled, and how they made it through those moments. Here's what they had to say.
Initially, our eldest child, Jesse, was showing a lot of signs of just being totally unhappy at his school. Now, we were sending him at the time to this really wonderful Montessori program up in Evergreen. And it's the sort of thing where, if it was me, I would have just loved it and thrived there. But that's one thing that became abundantly clear. Each child has their unique needs and desires and interests in education. And Jesse was showing real signs of distress in terms of he had stomach aches and everything. Our daughter at the time was also attending the school. And we had no concerns about her because she seemed very happy and compliant to go along with whatever the program was. But as it turned out, when one of our friends actually gave a flyer to us about Alpine Valley School, and it caught our interest, and we went to talk a few representatives of the school, listened to what they had to say, and realized, oh, this would be perfect for Jesse. And oh, by the way, this will be perfect for Aubrey as well. Because what turned out was, I think she would have really, thrived at the traditional school, and she would have emerged just the way that I did, because I thrived in traditional school. But I came out in the world not really knowing who I was, what I was passionate about, what I was good at. I had to relearn all of these things after I graduated. Our son had his needs met for giving him the freedom and permission to learn exactly the way that he needed to. He loved it there. Aubrey actually had a little bit of a transition period because she was looking for more structure and guidance, and then figured out, she could create that for herself. So she started thriving there. And then when our third child came along, he also he was eager to get started with the school because he saw how happy his brother and sister were.
My boy Tannen, from kindergarten on, it was very difficult. It was like putting a large square peg into a round hole. And it was almost a constant battle for anything, doing assignments, requests, fitting in with the other kids. It was just a constant battle to the point where Tannen would just refuse. And it turned into disciplinary action at that point from the school. Started at an early age. And as he progressed, 5th grade, 6th grade, it got to the point where he was being suspended for acting out just bad behavior. He was getting to be known as the kind of the bad kid. It was just not a good experience. I think 5th grade, he was actually expelled. I don't remember exactly what for. We started virtual online K through 12, and it was almost a joke from the standpoint of he did nothing except everything else in the computer he was supposed to do, and once again just literally refused. It affected every aspect of our lives. And then through a bunch of research, Annette found AVS online, and went down and interviewed with Larry and Connie. Honestly, it was hard for me, and still is, to be on board with the untraditional, I guess, classroom setting. But my boy has turned into since he's been there 3 or 4 years, and he's turning into an amazing young man. Our family gets along. Actually went out with my son last night. Went out into like a 2 hour out to dinner. Played some foosball, and we just get along. And he's turning into a happy, well behaved, knows right from wrong, just a great kid.
Both of my girls were in a charter school in Arizona that taught everything a year ahead. So the third graders were in fourth grade textbooks and that kind of stuff. And they were pretty much progressing as we'd expected. Mackenzie, the youngest, is a lot like me and kind of hard-headed. And so we knew that the traditional model of schooling wasn't really going to fit her, but I had muddled through it and she could muddle through it and she'd get along. And so the usual things popped up, and that was just kind of what we expected. And then about fourth or fifth grade, Caitlin started questioning this whole homework thing. She was always the rule follower and always did what was asked. And she came home just more and more upset and unhappy. And, with the final straw, she was doing some homework, and it said that the ancient Egyptians used to do long division this way. And basically we've decided that that's a really stupid way to do it, and we don't do it that anymore. But do the next 30 problems the way the ancient Egyptians did them. And she said, this is incredibly stupid and a waste of my time. Why am I doing this? And it was at that point we decided that maybe we needed to look for something else, that this wasn't the right fit for either of our kids. And we'd read Free at Last and said, well, let's go look. There's one in Colorado, and we'll go check it out and see how it works out. And we've never looked back. One of the hardest problems, the most difficult things for me with the model was the lack of progress, the lack of control, the lack of anything going on. And, you at least when you were in the traditional model, you would go to PTA meetings and other parents would talk about what was going on or what they'd seen, or they were in the classroom or things like that. And at AVS, you don't have that. And so I would get a lot of, well, what did you do at school today? Nothing. And it took me a long time to figure out that they didn't just know how to articulate that, well, we actually played, and that method allowed us to learn more about rules and interactions. And we played a lot of freeze tag, and those kinds of things weren't simple for them to communicate. And those weren't things. They just played. They didn't do anything. And so there was a lot of that, just trying to learn how to deal with that and to keep pressing the I believe button. That, I've seen some really great graduates from this school, and all the people that I've met that have had interactions with this school. So there's got to be something right. So I just need to keep on. Katie was our rule follower. And if I said something to her, no matter what it was, she would go do it. Whether she was fuming inside, it didn't matter. And I knew that we were actually making progress, that the school was actually working, when I told her to do something one day and she turned around to me and she said, "No, that's stupid." And I knew right away that she had made that little twist in her mind that said, you know what, I have value and I have feelings and I have opinions and they matter to me. And so just looking at them and knowing that they were happy and knowing that they were looking forward to going to school was enough to tell me that we were doing the right thing.
It's as Aaron indicated, it's difficult from my perspective of, as Aaron says, doing nothing. What'd you do today? Nothing. What'd you do today? Well, I played video games all day. And just to try to get him to elaborate on his day is very difficult. There's a couple turning points for me. Watching Tannen change from an angry, mad, all-consuming, almost hatred to just being a regular kid. I get a hug, we laugh, we talk, not greatly. He's a teenager, but it is definitely different than the way it was. But I think one of the biggest turning points for myself with the school is coffee with the graduates. AVS brought in a lot of graduates. I think there was probably, it's 20 kids there. And it was a question and answer format, and just interacting with the graduates, with the alumni of the school there, just seeing how well put together those kids were and the different things they were doing in life and things that they love to do versus things that they were forced to do. But it's still difficult for me to have a son that doesn't know history, or very vague history. As Aaron said, there's faith. There's a lot of faith involved. And my wife tells me that as well. So, but I would much rather have this situation than the alternative road he was going down.
Well, I can honestly say that it took me 3 years to relax and trust. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, so much of my own personal self-identity was tied up to performance in school. My identity, even as adult 20, 30 years later, was, I'm a straight A student. Totally irrelevant to life and everything else that you do. But it's like, so when I, considered sending my kids to a place that had no structured classes, no, assigned teacher roles, no grades, no division between classes, no metrics, as Aaron was messing here. There's really no way to measure anything. That kind of freaked me out a little bit. And it was hard to talk in my family about it because basically people in my family and my wife's family were all public school teachers. and it seems like, how am I going to defend this total rejection of what they've dedicated their lives to when I don't even know if this is going to work because I haven't the same experience that the other two have described. There's no structure here. There's, there's like no familiar context or form that I can wrap my arms around and say, this I believe in. The only thing that really kept me going, well, there are a couple things. The main thing was all the documentation, the books that had been written about the Sudbury Valley School. Just reading that, seeing the case studies, recognizing kind of some of the patterns that were emerging in how kids learn, allowed me to at least relax enough to say, okay, this has been demonstrated that it works somewhere else. It's probably going to work here. The second piece was my wife, which is she's just like a fierce champion for the rights of our kids. She knew that this was exactly what they needed. And so I kind of fed on her faith until I got through it. And after 3 years, not only were the behaviors and some of the problems the physical problems that Jesse, our eldest in particular, had exhibited before, not only had those all shifted and changed so that there was, as Brian has mentioned, our relationships with our kids and everything were changing, but their sense of self-confidence and the degree to which they could carry on intelligent debate and conversation, it was just obvious that this was working. They were learning, and it was entirely different from the way that I learned. I can honestly say now, like when the kids all get together and we all get around the kitchen table and have conversations, they are far more informed about everything, current events, history, everything, than I can possibly be. And I can't keep up with half of what they do. And I'm always amazed. And these graduate alumni conversations that Brian was talking about, when my own kids started sitting in those panels and I would listen to them answer questions, random questions from the audience, it would literally bring tears to my eyes with pride. It's like, oh my God, these kids are such good people and so intelligent and so capable. And it was really kind of humbling. And that's the place I'm at now, is the school provides an environment in which kids really can grow into their full sense of self and purpose and interest. And it kind of allows their innate genius to shine. And it's a very humbling experience.
Thanks so much to Aaron, Randall, and Brian for sharing their stories. Again, this is episode 33 of the Alpine Valley School podcast. You can find show notes for this episode at alpinevalleySchool.com/podcast/EP33 for episode 33. If you want to listen to the mom's episode of the show, it's episode 23, And you can find that at alpinevalleyschool.com/podcast/EP23. As always, thanks for listening. I'm Mark Gallivan. This is the Alpine Valley School podcast, and we'll be back again soon with more stories of real learning for real life.